I'd like to open the Board of Water Commissioners on Thursday, January 12th at 10:07 a.m.
All's on.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 3 ayes. Perfect. It was good seeing everybody. Hope everybody had a good New Year, holidays, Christmas, etc. So if you would just start off at for financials.
Okay, I talked to Jennifer and you've gotten the financials from her, the reports.
Yep.
During our discussion, I asked her to include a billed year-to-date column with our reports so that hopefully it will make it easier.
I
when-
just heard you, Paul. Sorry,
Okay,
Oh, you got me now?
I got you. Paul's here.
okay.
I was trying to ask you if you plugged it in.
Let's see. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. Everything all set?
Yeah,
Okay, so we have a billed year-to-date column so that we actually see what we build, so that when Brenda and I are doing the budget, we won't have to be looking back through her commitment notices to figure out what's what. And it would give us a more stable idea of where we're actually going. Because
Yep.
when the revenue comes in, it's just not from the current year, because we have people who haven't paid over the last 2 years. That's why we have the water liens and tax liens and penalties and interest.
Yep.
Because previously, we used to have a number of people who let their water bills and sewer bills slide until they were liened and put on their tax bills. And that kind of messed us up a bit because we weren't getting our revenue in, but we still have, and you can see from the reports, a substantial number of accounts. Well, I don't know about the number of accounts, but we have a number of accounts that have not paid up to date for prior years.
Right. 8,952. Yeah, on the tax liens. Yep. Okay.
No, that's just what was lean, but we don't know what comes in, because when you take a look at our reports, there is a report that indicates
Yep.
what comes in from year one. If you look at the all department revenue report, it lists the user charges from 21 and 22. We had 21,245.95 outstanding from 22. And some years we have well over 100,000 outstanding from the prior year. So we just, I thought that adding this column would give us a more accurate number of how we're projecting as to what we're actually billing. And then we can keep more of an eye on how much water we're selling. Okay, do you have any questions about any of the reports that we would like to ask Jen and to improve? Because we can work on these for the next couple weeks to get the next one. And she also said that if we were satisfied with these reports, that she could have them ready by the 10th of the month. Previously, we weren't able to get any reports before the 15th of the month with the last two accountants. She noted that Don was a CPA and he was doing a lot of intricate, detailed calculations that
Okay.
she has not been doing. So it's up to us what else we want on these reports. I realize we just got them, so we should probably be looking over them and thinking about it for the next couple of weeks compared to what we had before. And Chris will have to make sure you have copies of old reports, because we hadn't gotten any of those old reports for months, way before you got on.
Right. Yeah, these are actually the first reports I've had the chance to review. So I don't know what to compare it to, but it's certainly helpful to have something. So we'll have to review these.
Well, I think it's helpful to have it earlier in the month too, rather than later, so that we can, a week difference makes a lot when you're in business, as you know, to see where you're going.
Right. And if she could just fill in the blanks for the retained earnings, kind of complete the the financial statement. Gives you
Yeah,
the whole picture.
that's why I asked her to make sure that we have those numbers so that we know where we are with capital stabilization and retained earnings. So that we know what we do, especially when we have to prepare warrant articles for upcoming town meetings.
Lee, it's Mike. So
Yes,
just as an overall, are we more or less on track with income and expenses according to the cash flow forecast?
it doesn't seem as though we're on track with the income from the tier 3. We seem a little low in that.
Okay, but overall, we're pretty much okay. You know, things are going according to plan.
Well, because of our extraordinary expenses with our water main breaks.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we don't know. And then we still have not gotten the issues of the indirect cost resolved. That
Sure.
should have been
Okay.
resolved before the last town meeting. But the people who were in town hall did not want to do it. And what we have to do now is see what's happening as we're getting close to the deadline for warrant applications. Because Jennifer said that it would be rolled over into retained earnings at the end of the year because of the way the town budget is set up. When they do the indirect costs, they count that in and they just can't give it to us in the middle of the year unless we go and ask for a transfer at the next town meeting, if we feel we need it. So that is something that, you know, we might be discussing because of where our situations are going to be. I suggest we keep an open article in the event we might need a transfer from the indirect cost rather than going a transfer from retained earnings if we find that we're having more issues in extraordinary maintenance.
Okay,
But
thank you.
that's my idea. I don't know what Steve or Chris feel about it. Because it's 6 of one, you know, it's this number is going to be rolled over into retained earnings for the end of the year. Or if we feel we need to use it, we go to a warrant article and ask for a transfer. But we don't have to make a decision now. We still have several weeks. And while we're on the issue of indirect cost, she has not completed the figures for that yet, so we really can't discuss it in our budget. Because we don't know exactly, you know, what she's looking at for numbers for everyone in town hall.
So Lee, just so I understand, page 2 of the 5-page document you sent.
Which one was?
Revenue. So this is a revenue actual to prior year. So it's showing fiscal year 23, fiscal year 22, but also in the header, it says for 12 months ending 12/31. So
Okay,
is that a reference to some type of calendar year report?
okay, because that was one of the reports that Dawn had done. What she did was, it was for the 12 months ending, it was only for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. That's what that report is. And I did note that in that report, if you look down at the third line, user charges, the 1,793,000, you see that one, Chris?
Yeah,
That is the billed amount. The revenue amount is actually 1,576,000 because she had used the revenue amount for these numbers. If you take a look at her other report. Because
so
with the capital recovery charge, she used 1,054,000, which was revenue. And for the user charges, she used 1,793,000, which was billed. So there was, I called her about that and she's supposed to be correcting that report because I just gotten that. Yeah, we got it yesterday, so she
so
is
this
aware.
is actually for 6 This is for 6 months ending
6
December
months.
31.
Yes,
This is from July to December.
right, for both years.
Right.
But there is, as I said, that little error because we use a revenue number for one, for the capital recovery fee and a billed number for the user charges. And all the other numbers were revenue numbers. Because we didn't bill out, you know, there's nothing on, if you look at the water enterprise fund budget to actual, that has nothing under the bills except for user and capital recovery charge. So in order to keep it consistent, that third number should have been 1,576,508, which would make the bottom line number 2,914,782.
So this report, page 1, is saying that none of these lines 3 through whatever the last one is have been billed. Hydrant distribution charges, hydrant fees, penalties, liens, development charges, nothing has been billed in the first half of this fiscal year.
Yeah, no, she has not filled any of that income in. Because I specifically asked for only the first two, so this is why we're dealing with this way right now. This
And
is why we're looking at these forms.
They just sent the tax liens out. They just went out in December. So I don't know if she's got those numbers as of yet.
And we don't do the town hydrant fee until January.
It goes out on the February billing, so usually,
Okay,
I'll-
February,
I-
yeah. So
so
we
the
would have,
private ones will come in on the water bills, and then I'll send a large bill to Jennifer, who will do the transfer.
and she did not include anything from the rentals. That's the antennas from the three.
All right.
Yeah.
But that money is coming in. We have confirmed that the money is coming in from all 3 carriers.
Yeah, I make the
Yes,
deposit.
it's in the revenue column.
I know, but I just want to make sure because we don't bill that like a regular, water user resident.
Right.
T-Mobile sends one check a year now. So theirs just came in with the increase. So they pay for the year all up front, and then AT&T and Verizon pay monthly, and I track that.
So that.
But
in
you
the
don't have
next-
to, you don't do anything to bill for it. They just. send
No,
it in.
no, it's an automatic, and then the increase is automatic within their system.
Okay,
So we'll look for a huge number in next month's revenue because of T-Mobile paying a year in advance.
they pay on a calendar year,
Yes,
so their revenue is actually going to get split. Or does that just hit whatever?
It's
Period.
hit, last year it hit last fiscal year, this year it's hitting this fiscal year.
Okay, well, I guess this is a good start for the reports, but
well, that's why we're looking at
Susan.
them and, yeah, getting started.
Yeah.
And that's why
Okay.
we should be sitting down and discussing what else we want to have included so that she knows and she has a new assistant with her now, Diane, who has worked with SoftWrite for 20 years. Because she had lost the assistant that she had who really didn't know SoftWrite either and was only doing bills, so her new assistant will be able to be doing more of the work. Because I know this kind of looks thin right now, but don't forget, she's only come in October. She lost somebody. She wasn't familiar with SoftWrite. And we really never had a chance to sit down and talk to her because she's been so overwhelmed with all the rest of the work from all the other departments in town.
okay,
And she seems very amenable to, doing whatever we feel we need. So I think we're on the right road and in the next several weeks, hopefully we'll get everything all straightened out. But we just have to decide what we need.
all right. And the consensus is that based on based on our recent expenditure for South Main Street water break, our retained earnings are gonna be around 1.2 million.
I think that's what it is. We have to get that, because we had. this- Yeah, that's what it should be.
Right.
That's obviously a
Yeah.
rough number, but it's in that
Mhm.
ballpark because between Beechwood and
Yes.
South
that's-
Main, we started around 1.4, now we're around 1.2.
Yeah, because we had that issue with Beechwood, because I know you weren't with us at that time. When Town Hall initially sent out the RFP with the bid, they sent it out incorrectly because they included the pipe in the bid when we had purchased the pipe ourselves. So then they had to rebid, and then we got into this whole mess with what is going on across the country with the economy. So then the price had escalated. And the job was supposed to have been done before the blacktop plants closed. So obviously it's not getting done now until the spring.
Okay.
Mike, do you have any questions?
All right, want to go to the next agenda item?
Sure.
All right, so 2024 budget. You and Brenda kind of tackling this
Mhm.
this year. Any updates?
We really can't do any updates until we find out what the indirect costs are, number one. To give you a complete budget, and then we also have to find out how much we have spent in gas. Have you gotten a bill yet from Town Hall about the gasoline? Brenda?
I still haven't received December's yet.
Yeah, so we have to get that. You guys have the workup budget, right? That we worked on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So anything to highlight? Anything for discussion
Well, I
on
just
the
wanted,
draft?
I wanted to point out that when we were doing the expenditure portion of it, we did a significant increase to the sludge removal. Just because of the cost past couple of years.
Yep.
So that and legal and engineering. We bumped that up quite a bit too because of the Woodard and Curran projects that's going on now.
Yep. Any other big expenses, like just throwing it out there, like vehicles or anything in there for this year? Nothing.
I honestly think that the finance department and Brian Joyce, along with you guys, really need to look at that rate study and look to see what was slated for this upcoming year and to see if it's gonna work or if that's gonna be manipulated a little bit again. Because every time we look at this, something changes. So that
Yep.
huge spreadsheet with the rate study within the capital projects has to be updated.
Right.
And that way you'll know if what the 2.5% increase next year, something might have to be dropped off. If there was a truck that we were supposed to purchase, that might have to be bumped off another year for another project that may have to be put in there. Now, there was a meeting this morning about the 1800s pipe, but I wasn't part of that, so I don't know if there was a discussion about moving things around on that spreadsheet. Or if it was strictly just, this is what we need to replace, looking at it.
Chris, do you have the rate study from, was it good, 2 years ago now?
Yes, I believe I did.
All right.
Yeah, because I remember when Don and Jason did the rate study, they did move a lot of the capital items around from what Woodard and Curran had been projecting.
You
And
also wanna-
also-
You also want to tie it to the new master plan that we're gonna work on or create.
Well, one of the things we definitely know that's coming up, and I don't know if Brian mentioned this today, but the 3A work that's supposed to be done from like Beechwood down to the Situate line. And we've been wanting to do it, Woodard and Curran, for years. And then Jason said he wanted to push it off to do these other projects. But now I thought the board and even Brian was on board that when they're gonna be digging up 3A, we should definitely jump on board with that.
Yeah, that was something that the board has voted on over the last several years, but it hasn't been on a radar screen until the state decided to do it, because the state kept pushing it off. What did they do? They pushed it off 6 years already. So that's why it's sort of been in our back pocket, because it is an important line to replace. And to get it done while the state's doing it, it would save us a tremendous amount of money.
When is that happening?
When? I don't know. When is it happening? Does anybody know specific? Well, I think it's in the next fiscal year.
Yeah, is it this fall or next fall?
I thought it was 2024, but
20.
I'm not positive anymore. That
So
would be
that's something we have to get nailed down. Yes, Mike?
But like,
I'd be willing to work with one of you to review the needs for annual town meeting so that you've got capital projects queued up for the 2024 fiscal year. So if you've got the 3A water mains as something that could happen, anything to do with Elms Meadow, sludge, so on and so forth, we'd be happy to help get that itemized and prepared so that when you do come before capital budget and then advisory, you've got a clear list and the rationale behind each item, and it should go a lot smoother, should go very smoothly. One other question that I had that popped into my mind, on the charcoal filtering system that was funded for $3+ million, I think there'll be questions on what's going to happen with that money. So that should also be prepared. You should also have that prepared for any meetings with capital budget or advisory, if not, Chris Senior.
That sounds
sounds
very
good.
good. Yeah, we'll look into that, but talking about the GAC system, I have been getting emails from a friend in Norwell. I don't know if everybody realizes Norwell's having a serious problem with PFAS in 2 of their wells. The PFAS number's up to 27. So they had to close down 2 of their wells, and they are in mandatory tier 1 throughout the entire year. So I think we should just kind of keep an eye on what Norwell is doing in order to resolve their PFAS situation, because I noticed they're not using Tetra Tech in their study.
Right. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on what they're doing over there, because I'm sure the water supply is very close to ours anyways.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, they're all wells. They have no surface, but they have 5 wells that have to go through a treatment plant due to the
Gotcha.
issues with their wells.
And that's what tier 1 means, is treatment of the.
No. Tier 1 is drought.
Okay, I see what
That's
you're
what the
saying.
state
Restriction,
says,
water
the
use
drought.
restriction.
It's water use restriction
Got it.
relating to drought. But they put
Because
out
they
a
don't have enough
notice.
source.
No, they put out a notice to their residents that they are going to be in tier 1 drought restriction throughout the entire year because the 2 wells closed, but it's not due to the drought situation. It's due to the PFAS closing the wells.
I understand. Thank you.
and water supply.
Great.
Anything else on the 2024 budget? Good. Warrant article.
Sorry, Steve, just
Go
a
ahead.
quick question. The amount for contracted services, is this reflective of the 5% increase we recently had, which will remain flat for the duration at that 989?
Yes, I mentioned it to Lee, that, you know, you had done the amendment to the contract, and if I should just take that full dollar amount and populate it that way, so that it's going forward, it's just one line item for me and not two.
Okay.
So that's what the total amount is for this fiscal year, so I carried it over into next fiscal year. That does
Okay.
include the amendment price.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else on the budget?
Now, as soon as we get other numbers, we will send it out.
All right, great.
Just
Thanks.
one
Thank you,
comment,
Elizabeth.
one
Go ahead, Fred.
comment. Thank you for leaving that in there. Woodard Curran really appreciates that. I know you don't have to do that. So thanks again.
Very
You're
welcome.
very welcome.
Lee,
We
Chris.
appreciate your
Right.
service.
Exactly. Warrant articles, I know we just slightly touched base on the financials, but so Lee, you mentioned potential warrant article for
A
reserve
transfer,
funds.
yeah, I think we should just leave that, put
Yep.
that in. Because we can always take it out, but I don't know how much we'll need for any type of capital projects yet.
Right. So you could get started on the warrant article if you want to, and when's the warrant articles due? They're gonna be due in February, right?
I don't know, I haven't seen a schedule.
I saw a draft schedule and it looks like the end of January,
Ah.
Okay,
but
All right.
let me see if I can go find that or get an answer on that.
Yeah, if you can find it, let us know. I
Yeah,
can
have
look
it-
too.
have
I
me
know it's
send it
early.
to- Yeah.
I know they start reviewing the warrant articles in the select board in February, so it's yeah, if you want to draft something,
Yeah, maybe we should just put in a couple placeholders until we see what's happening, like we did before.
like so Lee and Chris, what other placeholders should we have? Like, or Brenda or Jonathan, Fred, anything for the Beechwood water main, any extras just in case?
Oh, I don't know, maybe we should put something in for the 3A water main, if it's going to be in 2024.
You see, I'm sure, so Brenda and Jonathan, you get the state updates monthly, right?
No,
The advertising?
no. No, we've been relying on Brian or Jason.
I get it here monthly. I'll take a quick look and send it to you.
Okay,
And I always feel you with this, with District 5, right? Brenda, we just Cohasset is District 5, right? I'm assuming it's District 5. I'll figure, I think it is, I think it's District 5, so, all right. I have a copy from December, I'll forward it to you.
okay.
That's what probably Brian is getting, where it's being either pushed out or whatnot. All right, so Lee, you're gonna tackle that particular warrant article?
Well, I don't think it's any, yeah,
Okay, so let's go on to sludge removal.
Yeah,
So-
so I think as most of you are aware, last month we received word from Bourne Landfill that they will no longer be receiving our material, which is a pretty big upset to our planning and operations. But we're about 2.5 months out from when removal would normally start, so we still have some time. Just before this meeting, I received a phone call from Dan Whitney, the gentleman who normally does our loading and trucking on the sludge. And it's a pretty big education for me that's ongoing. I haven't had a chance to convene with Fred and Woodard and Curran on the recent updates, but Dan's a great resource. These materials and disposals are his bread and butter, so he assures me that we will get it done as we have been in the past. So I have a short list of action items for the next few weeks to get it going, but we're going to be needing to establish a new permit for removal. So my understanding of the way it works is we've had a permit for many years, but the permit is specific to Bourne landfill, and it comes from the state that the landfill is issued in. We're in conversations, or Dan is in conversations with landfills in Vermont and New York. At the same time, I'm also in conversations with another company called Synagro, and that gentleman's also very confident that he has landfills that it can go to. Dan is aware that I'm in touch with Synagro, and I've assured Dan that no matter what happens, I want Dan involved because, as I said, he's a great resource to have, and we want to maintain a relationship with him. Apart from removal, we have some ongoing work happening as recently as today to the processing shed and the infrastructure out there. So a bit of a moving target right now, but pretty confident it's all going to work out.
Okay, I just have one question about the dewatering. How is that working out with the new process? Are we getting more dewatering?
Yeah, to a degree, although the material itself, from what I'm learning from Dan, it's notoriously difficult to dewater. So some of the changes we've made so far has improved the dewatering, but we're still pretty up against it.
So Jonathan, elaborate a little bit. So regarding chemical dosaging, percent removals.
Yeah, so we changed the polymer system, which is we're adding a chemical called polymer to speed up the separation of the water from the solids, and that has improved the dewatering from the bags, but the bags themselves are just far from ideal setup. So we've had a marginal improvement so far with the changes that we've made. We made changes to the shed to improve the efficiency of the labor that goes into it. It's very labor intensive, so we increased the size of the shed. We're now going to have 2 larger polymer solution tanks so that we can process more hours in the day.
Thanks. And the warm weather doesn't help. We really need a deep freeze for a couple of months. Unfortunately, we're not getting it.
Seems like this winter's like a mild spring anyways,
Well, we still have February. One never knows.
Keep our fingers crossed.
So just kind of quickly go back to the 3A corridor. I'll send it to you folks, but looks like it's slated for some point, like I said, 2024. So. All right.
So more sludge removal updates will be coming in the next few weeks. As they develop, I'll keep you all informed.
Great. Thank you. Chris, Lee, any other questions?
No, I'm not on sludge.
My only comment would be, this will be one of the main focus areas of Woodard in their master plan projects that we're engaged with them on. And in conversations with Jonathan recently, we discussed a previous, effort by Jason to vet a mechanical dewatering solution. So Brian dug up a proposal that a firm had given him for the equipment, I think only, which was $700,000 or $800,000. Then it would need to be installed, set up, and so forth. So my understanding is that idea was tabled because of the cost. So we have, or I asked Fred to send that to Rob Little and his team, simply as something to consider as part of their due diligence. But we know that the long-term solution to the sludge would be more space, more lagoons, or something like a mechanical dewatering solution. So it's still very much, I think, in the early stages of figuring out what the long-term solution is.
Right.
And when it was somewhat concerning when I learned more about the process to process the sludge, the labor requirement to process the sludge. So obviously that's a factor when we think about staffing, retaining staff, and just
Yep.
overall efficiency and production. So it's definitely, it continues to be one of the biggest challenges in the operation.
Chris, I did forward it to Rob. We had a conversation. We both know they're intensive or expensive to operate. We'd much prefer to have nature and gravity do its thing. But we will vet that technology as we will with others as also. Yeah.
Didn't, what was that, the previous person, not mention names, but they talked about dewatering. It is a pump they would put in. Did you remember that? He was gonna put this pump into the lagoons. Was it like,
I think that's what we're talking about.
right,
Yeah, it was, like a centrifuge dewatering system. And then it's more complicated because then you have to deal with the sludge, how to dispose of that. You know,
right.
It would be quite a bit more redesign. There are options out there. I don't want to start throwing stuff out there because I wait
No, because
for
we want to
Rob.
see that study.
Yeah,
The study will
Yeah.
cover everything, which sure everybody's looking forward to seeing,
right. And I believe all those disciplines will be on site, what, in a couple weeks, Jonathan?
Yes, Rob Little and his team will be here 2 weeks from today. And my understanding is like the advantages of their centrifuge is that you can have a steady stream of dried sludge leaving the property throughout the year, but it has a high operating and maintenance cost associated with it. And you have to house it, there'd be a metal building associated with it.
Gotcha. Just taking out the old cobwebs in the brain, because I remember him talking about it,
Yeah.
So, all right. So Elms Meadow, we're just gonna kind of keep this on the agenda, It's an asset that we shouldn't let go, and I think every month we kind of say the same thing, but hopefully part of the study, they can kind of look at Elms Meadow, and be kind of nice to get that at some point back online, with continuous testing and whatnot.
Yeah, so couple small updates on Elms Meadow. The PFAS result for last month was right in line with what the running average was, which is 17.7. So really no change there. And my staff and I are in the process of getting it up and running just to waste, because typically when we run it to waste, we don't use the chemicals. So we're going to start incorporating the chemicals as if it were ready to go, and doing the quarterly maintenance to all the analyzers as well.
Good.
So
Okay.
we did unfortunately leave out Elms Meadow of the scope of work, and it was not brought up. I think we all just forgot about it, but I would like to see if Woodard and Kern would be willing to include that analysis and a second opinion, so to speak, in the approved contract. I think we're right around $190,000, which was, at least in my mind, far more than what we were ballparking. And given our pretty substantial contractual relationship with Woodard, I'd like to see if they could include an analysis and study on Elms Meadow as part of the existing contract.
For clarification, you're requesting that Rob do that analysis for no additional cost?
Well, I think essentially, yes, unless there is some large scale scope of work increase.
All right,
So-
I'll pass that along to him, but I'm gonna assume that he's gonna want to have a conversation with the board and really discuss scope.
Yeah, which we look
And-
forward
and-
to having that conversation.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'll
Chris,
reach out to
I
him.
kind of agree with Chris, is, see if they can. It's a good point Chris made. It'd be well worth it. Just at least ask the
Okay.
question.
I mean, my first reaction is not gonna do it for free, Chris, but we can start the dialogue with him and we'll see where it goes.
Okay, about Elms Meadow, don't forget, we're not gonna be paying off the loan until 2032. And also, don't forget, as a water source, it was taking some of the pressure off of us for sludge because we were eliminating that amount of sludge. And another factor, looking through past notes, because I had been asking about what people are using on the hillside. A former employee who was working for us said, oh no, the PFAS is probably coming from septic systems, but there has not been a septic system on that hillside for over 20 years. They have been well sewered for probably 25 years now. And I still am getting reports from people in the neighborhood about the contractors using hazmat suits, applying the chemicals to all of the lawns and trees, and we're still getting the dumping. One bright note maybe was that issue that happened on Cushing Road the other week. The person who was arrested, he has been a landscaper and been a consistent scofflaw, dumping his waste on the meadow that no one in the area wanted to report on. And also going by that Cushing Road, looking at it, there are a number of downed trees. It looks like good firewood. So I have gone to the police department and said that if you see someone go in with a chainsaw, allow them to go in and take firewood out. But if you see someone with a wheelbarrow, please arrest them. So I have reached out to several people, anywhere from Lily Sestito to my minister. Brenda is looking through the Legion to see if there is anyone, especially in this time with the high utility costs, that would need firewood for their wood burning stoves or fireplaces. They're welcome to go in and take it because we're closed down anyhow. And we're hoping to maybe start a cleanup that way. And it would cost us nothing to get rid of the downed trees, because otherwise I would not even calculate how much it would cost us to remove all of the debris that's there. Yes, Mike?
I would think the select board would love to hear this request. They like to put the word out to the community where the community can help the town with little projects like this. So I think it's worth reaching out to them and saying, hey, the Water Commission is happy to provide free firewood, and you might organize a day or weekends where people can go in under supervision and take out firewood and do it in a more organized way. Just a suggestion.
Yes, thank you. No, well, I know a lot of people, when you say, oh, we have free firewood, they'll say, when can you deliver? This is not a situation like that. It is up to the convenience of the individual who wants it to come in, cut it and take it out themselves. And
Yeah,
there are
no,
some-
I absolutely
there are
get that.
selectmen that know
but-
about this already.
The select board will support cleanup days where people come and provide their volunteer time to the town. This would be in a similar situation where they would go in and cut their own firewood.
Yes, well, we've been through the cleanup days where we have no volunteers, but that's another story. But thank you so much on Elms Meadow.
So just a point of clarification, I think we agree on the high level next step of getting a second opinion on Tetra Tech's pilot study and recommendation. So, I'm not necessarily suggesting that Woodard and Carden undertake a new pilot study, but we do have a lengthy, exhaustive document already done and paid for, which has a conclusion of a recommendation of installing an ion exchange system at the cost of, you know, a little under $500,000. So what I think we need is someone to give us a second opinion on that pilot study and the recommendation, in addition to what potentially, if there's agreement on the ion exchange being the right way forward, what would be an estimated probable construction cost in today's market? So that to me seems like the most feasible way forward, because as of now, we're making zero progress on getting Elms Meadow back online. So we have done some things. So if we're engaged with Woodard and Curran to do this master plan study, let's have a look at what we have, give us a second opinion, and potentially give us another estimated cost or an updated estimated cost on what that system would be.
Okay, don't forget, Chris, there was also the GAC system recommended at the same time. By
Well, they
Tech.
said that they said that was an option, and ultimately their recommendation was ion exchange because of PFAS.
And also included cost benefit of the sludge removal as well, so there's a benefit, you know. Yeah, I agree with Chris. I have them look, I always, you know, Fred, see if they take a look at it and see if, obviously, if there's gonna be a cost. Let us know, that we can decide as a board. You know, because again, it's a wasted asset out there, you know.
I'll reach out to Rob when we're done.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, next, any other on Elms Meadow? Go ahead, Mike.
A question for you guys. Given that the PFAS levels have averaged below the threshold, would it make any sense at all to take a portion of that water and mix it in with the treated water from Lily Pond?
This is the question I've always asked, but what I was told is James, as soon as it leaves, hits James Lane, right?
Mhm.
And so it doesn't, I don't think it's have a chance to mixing with the treated water. So Jonathan, am I right, Fred?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to build a pipeline either to
Oh,
a tower or to the plant. Right.
Okay,
Good
all right, so
question,
that-
though.
that's
That
not
is a
part
good
of
question.
this system, right? Okay.
I thought the same thing, Mike. He's like, hey, can you just turn it on, it'll mix, but no. Actually, I think Lee had told me that like 2 years ago. It won't mix.
Yeah, no, the question of the pipeline did come up several years ago too.
All right, so next will be Lee Milfoil.
Milfoil, Jonathan, I want to talk about the benthic barrier.
Yeah, well, the benthic barrier, we normally would deploy it and pull it every year. And then the question kind of came up amongst the management here, like, why are we pulling this? So as of now, we're experimenting with leaving it in there for a year or two and to gauge what type of sediment builds up on top of it and maybe pull it every other year. As far as other thoughts and information I've gathered on milfoil, bit of good news is that the team who did the milfoil removal most recently told me that the work that they've done should get us by for a long time. I think he said as long as like 10 years. So we don't expect, you know, a milfoil problem to re-arise where it was removed for a very long time. And I also learned that the optimum window time to do that is between November and April. But be it that we're kind of right in the tail end of that window now, they're pretty booked up schedule wise. And he had told me that he could probably fit us in towards April, but I think conversations between us, Lee and Brenda, that the amount of money we have in that line item doesn't really quite warrant it. So I've been kind of waiting on your go ahead to cancel that request from him. But generally speaking, got a lot of good information from him, and he and I discussed down the road removing more milfoil from a different portion of the pond.
I agree with Jonathan that, you know, we should look into the fall maybe and remove more milfoil. I think we're saving what, about $5,000 by not having the benthic barrier taken out and put back on.
Something like that. Yeah, I think going in and out in a 12-month period, it's something around that much money. Yeah.
Yeah, so if we're saving that and taking a look at what we were spending in FY '22, we spent almost $48,000 for the milfoil removal with the benthic barrier. We have 50,000 in our budget for next year. I don't know how their costs have increased. Unless, we could get something done in the fall and do area that would be within the budget.
Yeah, increased costs didn't come up in conversation, and it wasn't that long ago that we did it, so it was more an issue of how much money we currently have for it.
Yeah. No, well, we do have some money for it, but as we're saying, we're getting just close to the end of line of adequate removal. So I would put it off to the fall.
Yes.
And it's helping, and it's also helping in the processing of the plant, correct? Because it's taking out.
Yes, well, we did that concurrently with aeration, so it's hard to say which was the bigger benefactor, but yeah, it certainly seems to have helped.
Yeah, so I mean, if we continue on with the aeration and then do, a little more milfoil extraction, hopefully we could be getting a better product because of less invasion into the plant with the different plants and chemicals.
Yes.
And I want to thank you both for, you, Fred, and Paul, for bringing the aeration back in, because that seems like it has greatly helped in some areas. Yes.
Fingers
It's
crossed.
just the manganese now, right? We had to figure out what to do with that. Okay, I'm all set.
All right, anything else, Chris?
No.
Okay, so next, one current update, this particular agenda item is gonna probably be on till the study's over, but, any updates?
Only that they'll be here in 2 weeks for their first walkthrough,
Perfect.
and we will engage them on Elms Meadow, change scope.
I'll reach out to Rob Little.
If there's any, stuff for the commission to kind of look into, obviously it could be just one of us, just, reach out. Just kind of like the Tetra Tech project, if it's a, quick update or whatnot, let us know.
Chris is doing a great job kind of staying connected to the infrastructure, so we'll continue to provide information through him if you like.
That's fine, not a problem.
What is what's the objective of the on-site meeting in 2 weeks? What's happening?
Well, it's sort of the kickoff of the study. I mean, they're currently looking at studies that have been done, but for their purposes, it's just their first in-person evaluation of the plant with their full team.
So all the disciplines come in, Chris, and evaluate the infrastructure, the processes, water quality and so forth. Similar to Tetra Tech, but different. This is more about treatability than it is asset management and long-term master planning. Obviously, Rob discussed like low-hanging fruit, your sludge wasting processing, management overall. So all those processes they'll go through.
Okay, so yeah, regular updates of some sort for meetings and discussions would be useful. So I know we kind of kicked this off right before the holidays, so we probably had a slower ramp due to that. But at least in my mind, I am looking forward to sticking to the 8-month timeline. So if something's going to deviate from that, we just want to know as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm hopeful it'll be done before that. I think that was worst case.
And we'll provide regular updates along the way.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so, Chris, meeting notes approval?
Yes, we have 3 meetings to approve. Do we need to do them separately or can I? do
No,
one
just
motion?
do them all at once.
Yep,
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the Board of Water Commissioners from meetings on November 15th, 2022, December 1st, 2022, December 16th, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second,
second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
So under commission comments, Jonathan, that lady from AT&T, was she gonna come to this? Oh, she's not here, but
No, unfortunately, she's unable to. Was discussing it with Chris and with Lee. I was probably gonna kick off another email thread with the entire group, proposing a few different options. One of them being, you all give me your questions and I'll be the mediator, or we can schedule a separate meeting just for her, or Chris has volunteered to spearhead it as well. So, I mean, whatever you all feel is the best approach.
I mean,
what do
I
you
just
think,
went,
Chris?
I just went through this with Verizon Wireless. So, you know, that seemed to have been successful. Their work is underway now. I don't particularly care for the fact that this woman seems to be pushy on the matter. We obviously need to get our questions answered and be on the same page. We're not just gonna, you know, loosey-goosey let them go work on the tank. So I think I'd be happy to speak with her directly, make sure that everyone has a full understanding of what the intent is and what the work is before we give them any authorization to proceed.
Okay, now I have been looking through old meeting minutes. I did not get as far back as 19 yet because I vaguely remember AT&T coming and talking to us. I know that a previous employee was working with AT&T and basically the procedure had always been to make sure that the tank was inspected and to go through emergency management and the police and fire department with anything that they were doing to ensure nothing would compromise any of those systems on the tank with their procedures. But you know, as I said, I have not looked back. I can continue looking back to see what else we had possibly discussed with them, because the only things I came up with in the 3 years I looked at was Verizon and T-Mobile.
Well, just one thing, I could have sworn that Brian Joyce had already said to the woman in the very beginning that a pre and post inspection needed to be done. And I think that she had taken the name of an engineering firm. And I'm not sure, and again, this might be Verizon I'm thinking of, but I thought it was AT&T for them to start the pre-inspection to make sure whatever they're doing, you know, if it's a heavier load or whatever, that the tank can handle it and not involve, you know, all the other utilities up there.
Because that sounds familiar.
I mean,
So
this
the
goes back a couple of, I'm gonna say like a month and a half, maybe 2 months. I'd
Yeah,
have
so
to pull up.
the documents that Jonathan sent around were the lease that is in place and some type of document outlining the upgrades from 2019. So it would appear that this has already been engineered and approved by the commission in 2019 and potentially has just not gotten around to getting done. I heard months ago that there was some upcoming AT&T work, and when I was communicating with people from AT&T about the lease extension, I asked that and nobody had any information or understanding of upcoming work. So it seems like this is resurfacing from a different group. This seems to be from a contractor working for AT&T, Starlink, or whatever it's called. So I think we just need to get to the bottom of it, get on the same page. First thing they need to do is apply for a building permit. So nothing's going to happen until that's done. But I can reach out to this woman and try to get these questions answered and report back to the board.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I think Starlink is an engineering firm, EPC for AT&T. They're one of the many contractors. So there could be a disconnect, obviously, between AT&T and them, but
I mean, I
And
swear to
so-
God, I said to her, are these the documents that are relevant to this? And she said, yes, and I hit forward. But in any event, thank you for volunteering, Chris.
Yeah, I think she's just trying to get the ball rolling. It's probably just one of these big company things and it got lines were crossed, COVID happened and that sort of thing. And I'm sure there's a big delay in the equipment. So on the AT&T lease, as the lease is written, there's nothing required for the extension. It was only, there's no documentation or signature required for the extension. It was only the town meeting approval, which we got. So that lease in place will continue for the remaining 10 years. So the only reason that would change or we would request an amendment would be if what they're putting up is changing in terms of space, load, requirement, anything like that.
Yes.
All right. All right. Anything else for under commissioner comments?
Do we want to schedule another meeting before the end of the month and make sure that Jennifer can attend so that we can go over budget and everything with her? But it depends on when she's finished with Indirect. I'd probably say the last week of the month. But we could get a date earlier.
Let's see. 26. Pretty much anytime 23rd to the 27th.
Does she have just budgetary stuff every Thursday, do you know?
That sounds like what she said.
So maybe a different day would be better for her.
Yeah, I mean, when she said 8 or 9 o'clock works for her too. As I said, with the previous accountants that we used to go in and talk to them and say, when can you have the information ready, and then go that way. And since she's still settling in, she may not have that ability, but I'm just looking to see that we do have information that's going to be needed at the beginning of February. Even if we do maybe that first week of February, anytime Wednesday, Thursday, February 1st or 2nd, if we could look at that. So that we're not holding up any other town departments. And we'll probably have more information by that time with what our capital projects are looking at. We can do more of a perusal of the rate study.
Okay. So 30, 31st, first.
I'm not available on the 31st. Unfortunately,
I'm pretty
But-
flexible any of those days.
there is the 1st or 2nd. We don't have to set the date right now, but this is just something to
Yeah. Yep.
keep them to our mind. And
Did you want to set a date for the 1st? Oh, Chris, you said you weren't available.
No, I'm flexible any of those 3 days.
Yeah, I am too.
yeah, well, unfortunately, I had to be in Boston on the 31st for an appointment.
Okay.
So I'm good the 1st or the 2nd.
First,
Let's do the 1st.
And then let's ask Jennifer if she's available too.
Right. Yeah, let's get her on the calendar first. Then we
Yep,
can
let's get her-
adjust.
Mhm.
Do you want me to put in for 10 o'clock again?
Sure. For now, as a placeholder.
I'll reach
Yeah.
out to her when we're done with the meeting and see if she's available.
Yeah, well, how about the 30th? If the 1st or 2nd doesn't work for her.
Yeah, that works for me.
Um,
That's the best day. The 30th.
Chris?
Yes, that's good for me.
Okay,
Okay. I'll ask both days.
okay.
All right. Anything else, folks?
That's it.
Yes, Mike.
Michelle Leary got back to us on the date for the, what they're calling a notice of intent for annual town meeting warrant. That's January 20th.
All right, I'll talk to her.
January 20th, enterprise fund budgets due. Water sewer finance as well.
But unfortunately, we don't have the money for, or the information from finance in order to finish our budget.
And also, Mike, usually in the past,
Mhm.
they've always let the enterprise funds kind of
Okay.
be a little bit later. They try to give everybody a drop dead time, but usually we get a couple of extra weeks, water and sewer.
Okay, but that, and Brenda, she copied you. She actually copied the three commissioners and Brenda. So you all have that.
Okay,
Okay. All right. I'd like to adjourn the Board of Water Commissions on Thursday, January 12th at 11:13.
second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey,
See
and
ya.
we did it only an hour, 6 minutes, Steve.
I know, I'm shocked. I'll see you guys.